it's Drybear. Continue our series of covering all of the early access classes in Path of Exile 2, and today we've landed on the Ranger. But first, there will be Twitch drops available on this Friday, December 6th through the 13th, and then the following week as well. So you can find those on my channel, twitch.tv/Drybear, if you want to come along and grab those, and you'll also gain access to a pet that you'll get in-game as well if you gift 2 subs. So if you're around and you're hanging out, we'll be celebrating the launch of Path of Exile 2 over on my Twitch channel. If you want to get the free drops or the Chimera pet, that will be available for you. The Ranger is a super fun class to play and is probably one of the most mobile. I think Monk and Ranger are going to be the most mobile and the most skill expressive as far as movement being part of your gameplay. So if you like having that as an option, consider the Ranger as a character to play. Now again, as a reminder for anyone who's never played Path of Exile or has not been too deep into Path of Exile 2, the only things that are determined by your starting class are where you start on the overall talent tree, what your ascendancy choices are, and what your character looks and sounds like. Otherwise, you have access to every other character's skills, you have access to all the weapons for the most part, and gear options as well. So you will be able to customize from other classes, but it will determine your look, it will determine your ascendancy choices, and it will determine where you start on the talent tree, so where you start building up your talent points from that perspective. Now, while the classes have limited access to some of the elements, at least in their own skills and availability, lightning, poison, and ice are the main ones for the Ranger, but they also have access to some physical and some bleed options as well. And their 2 ascendancy choices are pretty interesting, which we'll get to in just a minute. But you'll primarily be using a bow if you're a primary Ranger, and there are 21 bow skills to choose from. And again, a lot of it, just like the Monk, is more around movement, dashing, and positioning. I think unlike some of the other classes that are more about raw power, I think Ranger has a lot of room for skill expression, and also if you just like to showboat, because I think some of the moves and placements and strategies for the Ranger end up looking very cinematic depending on how you position yourself and how you shoot. And one of the cool changes about Ranger in Path of Exile 2 is they allow you to shoot and move at the same time. And additionally, they also have the ability to get onto a Roa mount, which allows them to do more of the horseback archer combat. This is unique to the Ranger. Every class has something unique to them that is only accessible by them, but it's another cool element that if you like to do that horseback dosho kind of attack where you're just shooting from the back of a mount, you can use that with the Ranger. It's more of a cosmetic thing that just pour the Ranger in general, but I think it's kind of cool and something to think about. Now, they are also a very stack and momentum based character, so they're going to focus a lot on being able to build up charges of some mechanics. There's going to be a lot of focus on the actual frenzy mechanic. You can also do mechanics through the abilities and the skills and the support gems as well, as they build up and then get consumed in some way. And there's plenty of those kind of momentum based things. So again, if you like high mobility and momentum, I think Ranger is a great choice. They also have some really cool uniques. One of the ones they've shown off for us for Ranger is a unique bow that does double your attack speed, which means a lot of different things for how you use your abilities and how fast you shoot, which I think altogether makes it really interesting to play. Now, much of what they do, at least baseline before you start mixing in other skills, relates to their bow. They will have arrows, deployables, and planted. You can put lightning rods in the ground or on enemies that will arc lightning between targets. So if you wanted to have a chain lightning archer build, you could. They have a lot of plant and poison effects that are putting down on the ground. So you have vines and wraps and pustules and little flower buds and bloomers that go off that do different things. And a lot of it does go around, again, like the mechanics of stacking and building momentum, like we talked about before, but also having deployables on the ground that have different effects. You'll be building up a lot of poison, potentially lightning, maybe some ice effects that go into fire explosive, or maybe you can mix in other class effects like the Invoker Monk or even Sorceress or Warrior to play along with these elements that you have as part of the Ranger kit. And to supplement they're a little bit on the squishier side relative to some other classes like the Warrior, but they also have a lot of CC to go along with it. So not only are they able to move around very effectively and in very flourish heavy as well, but they also have a good amount of CC and control that goes along with their kit as well. So it is very much, if you like, not so much having the raw power to blow up the whole screen, but you want something a little more strategic, something that makes you think a little bit more. I think Ranger is going to have more options options for you as far as that expression goes in its kit overall. For early access, every class is going to gain access to 2 different ascendancies. You can think of these as subclasses. You will do your trials throughout your leveling process to unlock these, and then again to get additional ascendancy points and unlock these as well. The first one that you have available for Ranger is going to be the Deadeye, and this one focuses entirely on momentum and the bow itself. And you can specialize this into different forms and different gameplay styles, but it is more focused on the bow itself. You'll see that the base passive for the Deadeye Ascendancy is Tailwind, which is a stacking buff that gives you increased movement speed, increased skill speed, and increased evasion per stack. And this goes along with the other stacking elements that you have, not only with the skills, but also with Frenzy, a stacking mechanic on top of it. So again, if one of my favorite builds of all time is Diablo 3, the Veers build for Avatar, where you build up stacks, and the faster you go, the faster you get stacks, and it keeps getting faster and faster and faster. I love those kind of rolling builds, and I think Deadeye is going to have several versions of that you're going to be able to play with. You also have ways to like mess around with your accuracy, do more damage at distance, be able to do additional projectiles without needing to add a support skill gem on top of that, having marks on the target, or gaining more and more tailwind. So having that pace build up faster and faster and faster, I think is going to be super cool, and it gives you room to play around with not only the Ranger kit on whether you want to do poison and plants, or lightning, or ice and explosives, or just like physical damage with bleeds on top of other class abilities you might stack on top of it, but also just very momentum and speed based, which I think is really, really cool. But what's cool is not only do they have like the long, like Farseer style, marksman style build, they have 2 options here, point blank and far shot. And these basically are antithesis of each other. One of these options for the Ascendancy means that the farther away the target is, the more damage it will deal to the target, and the opposite is the closer the target is to you, the more it deals damage to them, which is great because you have these really cool charge up shots in combination with CC to do some really crazy damage. You can shred armor off of targets and snipe them, like mark them, shred armor, and then do big blast single target hits. So you still have that single target, single hit burst option for Ranger, but you also have the option to do more shotgun style as well. And with the different effects you have on the elements, you can combo these together to create some really cool, like upfront, you CC them, put them together, vine them to the ground, and then shotgun them in the face, blast them, flip back, do a snipe, go back in. Some really cool options you can build for that, which I think is going to play through the normal, like Legolas style, Archer Ranger style gameplay. The second ascendancy to choose from is going to be Pathfinder, and this one is a wild experience overall. So what Pathfinder does focuses a little bit more on the plant and poison side of things, but additionally they have a unique mechanic called Brew Concoction. What this will do is it will consume charges of your fixed mana flask. In Path of Exile 2, you have 1 health flask, 1 mana flask. You cannot remove these. You can modify what they do and you can make them better, but you will always have a health flask and a mana flask. And with Brew Concoction, you can consume charges of your mana flask to throw potions of different elements that do different things and apply different effects and ailments. And the ailments that come from these flasks are increased over normal ailments. So you basically are an alchemist, a brewmaster of sorts that have special ailments and effects that can stack up on top of the other effects you have. And again, you have the option to mix with other classes. So maybe you wanted to do like a fulminating concoction, lightning throwing, lightning ranger that mixes in some of the sorceress abilities for lightning, stacking all that together to do shock effects and spreading shock effects could be super cool, that sort of thing. So they have some really cool options there. It increases their ability to move. They get extra passive skill points, which again gives them more options in a lot of ways as well. They can get more flash charges, and so this creates a very unique niche playstyle for Ranger that's going to be different than almost any other class that you can get into. Now, as it stands right now, it seems like Ranger is probably going to be one of the least picked classes out of early access. Again, we may not, there's no way to know for sure right now, but as far as like the hype goes, I think it's one of the less hyped, and it's also a class that does exist more or less in Path of Exile 1, so it doesn't have the same kind of new car smell that some of the other classes have. But I think because of the way it handles deployables, you can see some really cool lightning rod builds that go along with that, and the mobility aspect giving you a little bit more of a cool, like sunglasses on, wicked style of presenting yourself, including that movement in their overall gameplay. I think Ranger has a really cool offering that no other class will have, and also if you just like using bows and bow skills to combine together with other things, I think is going to create some really fun options for the Ranger as a class overall. So if you're picking Ranger, let me know what you think of the class, and if you're someone from PoE1, how do you feel like the class has changed over time? If you found value in today's video, leave a like down below, leave a comment for the algorithm to help this video get seen by more people, and don't forget to check out my other channels for other content and other stuff and other things.